The Shark Deck.
Hey, you remember last year when Dave Chappelle got curfewed at Napa and said he'd never return? Hi, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Well, I guess money talks because Dave is on the slate to MC the festival's triumphant return to Napa's Silverado Resort, July 28th through the 30th. It's the Blue Note Jazz Festival. Dave Chappelle, your MC. Headliners include Mary J. Blige, Nas, and Chance the Rapper. 3-day passes for the Blue Note Jazz Festival start at $550. From USA Today, Bobby Lee has responded to backlash over resurfaced videos of the comedian reportedly telling a story. I told you about this yesterday. It's a little icky. He most recently told the story on a 2020 podcast episode about an encounter with a prostitute in Tijuana. The story that Lee told, I'll condense it here, has him going to Tijuana scouting for a prostitute in Hooker Alley. He found a girl that seemed scared. Bobby Lee has addressed the criticism on his Tiger Belly podcast. He said, the last couple of weeks have been so bad, I just need to say something. It's easily explainable. He said in 2013, he was forced to do press after not selling tickets to a second show at Caroline's on Broadway. When Lee saw Opie and Anthony on his schedule, he recalled telling his team, I don't want to do that show. It's just not my brand. It's edgy shock radio. The following year, he was scheduled to go on Opie and Anthony again, and he said he decided to do self-deprecation and crazy jokes to avoid being skewered by O&A. He said he combined two unsuccessful jokes from his tour to form the Tijuana story. The first bit was about going on a date with a young girl who looked like 12-year-old Natalie Portman from Leon the Professional, and the second joke was about speeding up the process of sex with his girlfriend who started crying about her recently deceased grandma during the act. Lee said, I was encouraged to say crazy stuff without thinking about it. When I listen back to it now, it puts a chill down my spine. I changed with society, and I look at that story and feel guilt over it. It's terrible. It was stupid to say it as many times as I said it, including apparently as late as 2020 on Theo Von's podcast. So we're throwing O&A under the 2013 bus. That's all fair. But you told it in 2020. Bobby Lee said, I understand the uproar and why people are upset about it. I'm upset about it, and I punish myself over it every second of every day. At the end of the day, it's not real, and I didn't do anything. Well, that is good. Leslie Jones tells people she would like to be the host of The Daily Show. She said, it was one of those in-the-pocket fits. You know how you get fitted for a suit, and you're like, yeah, the suit looks nice on me. I don't mind wearing this style on me. The Daily Show was that. I would say my writer, Lenny Marcus, said to me that we've been trying to find a place that's actually going to be fun and an efficient place to work at. Everybody calls themselves world-renowned, and they've done this and done that, but we haven't ever had totally good experiences on productions. A lot of times people are crap that's floating or just not as good as what they think they are or messy, but on The Daily Show, everybody there was good at their job, and everybody there was staying in their lane and did their job. Even when we were editing jokes and bits and stuff, they were so respectful. And then they were very good at what they did. There were lines that I was like, okay, how am I trying to say this? And I'm telling you, the writers would say it, and I'd be like, gosh darn, are you in my head? They were good. I remember asking Chris Rock, I was like, is there any advice? And he was like, first of all, I'm never worried about you. And second, don't try to be Jon Stewart. Don't try to be Trevor. Be you. Be who you are. I already kind of knew that, but you know how you just need maybe a little permission to do that? So that's really what it was. Donald Glover is profiled in GQ, and he said Amy Poehler told him that he didn't get on SNL because his stand-up lacked a point of view. Glover said, me being on SNL would have killed me. I got friends who made it on SNL, and at the time I was like, damn, but if I got on SNL, my career wouldn't have happened. Glover has claimed that Tina Fey confirmed to him that he was only hired as a writer on 30 Rock because of NBC's diversity initiative. Wow, at 23 years old, Donald Glover got a job on 30 Rock in 2006. He told GQ, it was a diversity thing. There's no animosity between us or anything like that, but Tina Fey said it herself. The last two people who were fighting for the job were me and Kenya Barris. I didn't know it was between me and him until later. Glover said, Kenya hit me one day, and he was like, I hated you for years. Glover said, it definitely didn't feel like I was supposed to be there. I used to have stress dreams every night where I was doing cartwheels on the top of a New York skyscraper with the other writers watching me. The Good One podcast had on Kathleen Madigan. They said, you know, sometimes you'll announce a new tour, but it seems like you're actually on the same never-ending tour. Kathleen said, it is never-ending. People are like, oh, how long has this tour been? And I'm like, 35 years? I'm not Black Sabbath. I don't get to take 2 years off and think of an album. It starts when you're in theaters. Let's say I do the Chicago Theater once every 18 months. They don't want to put the same poster up. They don't want the same ad. That's what's driving all that, and that makes sense. But usually it's new jokes by the time I get back there. But tour names for comics? I'm just grasping at anything. Call it Box Wine and a Tiny Banjo. I don't want it to be a title where the press could be mean. What's it like on the never-ending tour? The first few times I went around, I did all the touristy things, and then you start making friends in those towns. It's a chance to see my friends again. If I'm going to Columbus, Ohio, I'm not going to the zoo. I've been there a bunch. I'm going to see my friends. She said about working, she and Ron White have the same theory. You're either working or you're not. It's like going to the gym. Oh, really? You haven't been in 3 months? I don't know all these stand-up comedians, so I haven't heard their name in 2 years. All of a sudden, they have a special? Really? Where did you do that? It's incomprehensible to me. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying they're not necessarily funny. I just don't understand. I have to be in a rhythm. Even if I take a week off, that first show, I'm going to forget a few things. It's just rust. And Ron White is such a pot monster that his memory's shot. He's like, I can't remember anything but 10 minutes in my whole life. And I was like, well, that's enough. You could be my opener. Why not? Just go out there and do 10 minutes. It doesn't even matter how good it is. McCall caught up with Jay Leno. He's at the State Theater tonight. How you doing, Jay? Well, let's see. I've got a broken collarbone, 2 broken ribs, and 2 cracked kneecaps. Other than that, I'm okay. It's actually not too bad when I'm on stage. It's fine. It would be far worse if I had slipped in my Pat Boone walk-in bathtub. But when you're 72 and crash your 83-year-old motorcycle, it's kind of cool. As for the show, I guess it's what you'd call classic stand-up comedy. I decided to take the politics out of the act because it's so divisive. I've found that when you're on stage and you mention either candidate, people always wait till they hear the joke before they react. If the joke was for their candidate, they laugh. If it was against their candidate, they'd boo. It's funny how you can have a wonderful cross-section of America, a regular audience, you're doing fine, and then 25 minutes in, you start talking politics and they start booing and yelling. I understand, Jay. I get podcast comments. I just read late-night jokes. I don't write them. Jay said, when you're a comedian, you'll always lose half your audience if you give your opinion. That's why I make fun of both sides equally. One of my favorite guys was Rodney Dangerfield. I knew him for 40 years, and all that time I had no idea if he was a Democrat or Republican because we never discussed politics. What's the hardest part about being a comedian, Jay Leno? He said, there's nothing harder than writing a joke. You always need to come up with material, and that's why I like being a road comic and having that interaction and one-on-one with a live audience. I don't want to do a Netflix or HBO special. With those, you make a ton of money, but it's only that one show. I'd rather do 100 shows and learn something. I honestly thought I'd do this until I had to get a real job. I grew up in a little town in New England, had an English teacher who pulled me aside once and said, I saw you in the hall making jokes. How about instead of writing a paper for my class, you get up and give a talk? For the first time in my life, I actually enjoyed doing homework because I had to think about what I was going to say. It wasn't hilarious, but I got a few laughs. My teacher gave me an A. My mom was stunned. She said, have you ever given thought to being a comedy writer or comedian? I said, no, not really. He told this wonderful story. I remember when I was in 5th grade in Mr. Simon's class, I had to write a paper about John Glenn circling the earth. So I wrote the paper and I got a C- on it. 48 years later, I had John Glenn on The Tonight Show. So I called Mr. Simon, who still lived in the area, and I said, do you remember the paper I wrote where you gave me C-? Well, I have the second part of my report we'll be talking about on The Tonight Show, so be sure to watch. I had told John Glenn about it beforehand. He thought it was funny. The next day, Mr. Simon called me up and told me he'd upgraded from a C- to an A. Oh, man, listen to this. You know what this is? This is about 1/11th of a large iced coffee with caramel and almond milk. Don't you feel bad for me? I mean, it's so sad. I've got like 3 sips left. If you want to buy me an iced coffee with caramel and almond milk, go to buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. It's a great, easy way to support the show. Several options there. You can join the $2 club. It's a recurring membership. You can recur at a higher amount. You could buy me a coffee for $5. You could buy me 3 like Kara Wood did the other day. Or, hey, you can throw $1 million in the tip jar. Believe me, if you throw $1 million in the tip jar, I'll shout you out at least in 2 consecutive episodes. That's how cool I am. Buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. The headliners for Norfolk's 14th annual Great American Comedy Festival have been announced. Vicki Lawrence will headline the closing night gala. She will perform as both herself and her famous character, Mama. That's Saturday, June 17th. Michael Ian Black headlines the night before. And the festival kicks off on Thursday, June 15th with the traditional family comedy magic show. This is in Nebraska. Check it out, greatamericancomedyfestival.com. The Sydney Morning Herald shared a seasoned performer's guide to the Melbourne Comedy Festival. Allie McGregor suggests buy early evening tickets to a big name you're familiar with, then take a flyer on one of the fresh faces doing a set at Town Hall. She says the show's only an hour long, so if you're going to go into the city, make a full night of it. See someone you know, then get a bite to eat or drink, then go to Town Hall to grab tickets to someone you never heard of. I agree. That is a great plan. You've heard me say several times now, Melbourne is a fantastic city. McGregor says the festival takes over the whole city and it feels like everyone's totally vibing. I would suggest going to bars that look over the city so you can have a drink and look down and see people walking around. She likes Madame Brussels. It's a bit of an institution for me. You catch a lift to a roof garden that's decked out like an English tea garden to play croquet in, and all these bartenders are wearing tennis whites. It's hilarious. The Age took a look at a bunch of shows at the festival. One of them, Sashi Pereira, she started in 2018 at the Raw Comedy Competition and said, "Raw comedy is such a great way to experience stand-up for the first time. If you get up at an open mic, there might only be 1 or 2 or 3 people in the audience, whereas this was packed with people's friends and family, and everyone's on your side." She made it to the state finals that year. Eventually got approached by producers to appear in group shows at the festival. She says, "When I started, I didn't want to talk about being a woman. I didn't want to talk about being brown. I was just like, I'll talk about doors and automated voices, things everyone can relate to. But I found the more of myself I put in, the more personalized I made it, the more I was connecting with the audiences." Her show Endings is at the Chinese Museum through April 9th. Dan Rosario found out when he first tried stand-up, he didn't suck. He said, "Some of my best mates did comedy every day for 2 years before they got a laugh. But I was the only boy of 8 cousins, and I used to wake up in the morning at age 6 and think, how will I make the girls laugh?" He didn't want to rush into his first full-length solo show. He said, "I got a lot of advice from comedians who've been in the game longer. They were like, when you want to do an hour show, wait a year." His fans thought otherwise. People kept saying, "When can we see you? We're sick of seeing you do 5 or 10 minutes. Well, now you can see him do an hour. White People Need to Relax is the name of the show. It's at Trades Hall through April 23rd. The Age also took a look at Braun Lewis. Her previous career was as a high school English teacher. She decided to try stand-up and said, "There's a bit of a midlife crisis stench about someone in their 30s starting comedy. My friends were like, we think you're funny, but that sounds terrifying." So she moved to Brisbane. In Brisbane, I didn't know anyone. It's nice to perform for people who aren't worried about you. There, she figured out how to get good at comedy. Her take on hour-long shows: you don't have time to do a story in a 5-minute spot. You don't have the time to work with cadence. It's bang, bang, bang. But now she's got an hour. Braun Lewis, it's called Probably. It's at the Westin 4 through April 23rd. And let's open up the schedule. How long do you think it'll take to load today? It took about a minute. All right, let's see what I can tell you about today. A lot of children's shows in the morning, tomorrow being Saturday. I guess that makes sense. Let's listen to Ivan Aristeguieta. He was the winner of the Best Comedy Award from the 2023 Adelaide Fringe. Also the winner of the Best Comedy in the 2022 Adelaide Fringe. He must be pretty good. Say hola to Australia's newest Aussie. This happy immigrant has just become one of us, Crikey Amigo. All right, let's listen.
I'm from Venezuela. I've been living here for 4 years. 4 years. I already feel I'm becoming Australian because I'm relating to food in a more Australian way. Last month, I went to Bunnings on a Saturday morning. As soon as I smelled the sausage sizzle, I was like, oh my God, sausage sizzle. I was like, oh my God, what's happening to me? That wasn't me 4 years ago. The first time I smelled a sausage sizzle, I was like, oh my God, there's someone burning inside a car. And it's a hairy man. It's a fat hairy man and his dog. They're burning inside a car. Please help them, they're gonna die. Not anymore. I love a sausage sizzle. I love them. You pay coins for it, just coins. How good is to pay with coins? I love paying with coins. When I pay with coins, I don't feel I'm giving away money. I'm just getting rid of coins.
All right, I found that really funny. I had the mic open. I was holding back laughter to not step on the jokes. That was pretty good. Now, I want to play another clip, but the website froze. So let me just get out on top, since that was actually funny. That's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. We'll try again tomorrow. Maybe the website will work. Can I interest you in some meatballs made out of mammoth meat? No? All right, hi, I'm Johnny Mack, host of 5 Good News Stories. It's a twice-a-week podcast where I share some upbeat stories like the dog who only will respond to commands if you use an Irish brogue. Or what about the guy who's filling potholes with noodles? Or the woman who, congratulations, she passed her driver's license. Oh, by the way, it was her 960th try. You heard me correctly. It's 5 Good News Stories. Nice, easy way to start your morning. 5 Good News Stories. The number 5 Good News Stories, wherever you get your podcasts.